Namaste. In this video, we will be covering linear equations with two variables. So what is a linear equation? This is an equation between two variables that plots a straight line. Notice how in the bottom left diagram, we have two linear equations that both are represented by perfectly straight lines. Also, notice how each equation has exactly two variables. Here we have a y and an x, and here we also have a y and an x. Let's now try to solve this problem. Before I begin, I highly encourage all of you to pause your video and try it out. So we're given that Ishan and Harish went to a store and bought fruits. Ishan spent X rupees and Harish spent Y rupees. If they spent a total of 130 rupees, complete the following. For part A, we are asked to write an equation to represent this situation. And I'd like to draw your attention to the word total. We know that Ishan represents X and Harish represents Y. If they spend a total of 130, this means that their combined sum is 130. So for part A, we can say that X plus Y equals 100. Part B states if Ishan spent 40 rupees, how much did Harish spend? Remember that Ishan is the same as X in this problem. So basically, we are given the value of X, which is 40. All I need to do is plug this in to my equation and solve for Y, because Y represents Harish. So by subtracting 40 from both sides, we see that Harish spent 90 rupees. For our next problem, a construction worker needs to build a rectangular fence using wood. The length and width are X and Y meters respectively. If 550 meters is needed for the total fence, complete the following. So we know that the shape of this fence is a rectangle. So let me quickly construct one. So I'll now label this diagram with relevant information. We know that the length is X meters and the width is Y meters. So how can we use this information to solve part A, which asks us to write an equation to represent this situation? Well, from the problem, we know that the construction worker needs 550 meters. This represents the perimeter of our rectangle, or the sum of all four sides. So basically, to write an equation, we are going to add all variables and equate that to 550. So we do X plus Y equals 550. And note that this can be simplified. Our x's combined to get us 2x, and our y's combined to give us 2y. Can this be simplified? Well, yeah. If we divide both sides by 2, then we'd get a final equation of x plus y equals 275. So that is our equation for part A. What about part B? This tells us that the width measures 60 meters and is asking us to find the length. Remember that the width in this problem is y and the length is x. So if we know the value of the width, we know the value of y. I can plug this into our equation by simply substituting 60. So our new equation would be x plus 60 equals 275. And now, to solve for x, we simply subtract 60 from both sides, and we get that x equals to 215 meters. For our next problem, we're given that there are 90 students in a class. If the number of boys is double the number of girls, find the number of boys and girls. So before I begin, I'll define two variables. Let's say that B is the number of boys and G is the number of girls. We automatically know that B plus G must equal 90 because there are a total of 90 students in this class. But this equation does not help us solve for the exact number of boys or the exact number of girls. So how can we do that? We need to use the fact that the number of boys is double the number of girls. This tells us that B is the same thing as 2G. So what we can do now is substitute this back into our equation. And we get that 2G plus G equals 90. Okay, now we can clearly see that this simplifies to 3G equals 90, and therefore the number of girls is 30. So we solved one part of this problem. How do we solve for the number of boys? Well, my suggestion is that we use this equation right over here, because we can simply plug in G to solve for B. Now, to do that, all I have to do is rewrite this as B plus 30 equals 90, and therefore the number of boys is 60.